started dancing and acting. I grew up in Los Angeles and pretty much toured the world with that. I've seen a lot of stuff, done a lot of stuff. I'm not your most famous guy, for sure, but had a lot of experience with a lot of different folks professionally that really kind of changed me. You know, really inspired me and really, you know, kind of steered where I went in my life as far as that business. I then expanded into, how about the dim lights? That's awesome. That's fantastic. This is so pro. I then went into, I was really inspired to want to tell different stories. I love working in TV, I love working in film, it's great. But I also felt that the stories became very similar. And I wasn't a movie star. I couldn't command the best roles and the best things. So I would take whatever I was given. And I wanted to tell stories that were more risky or, you know, more unique and take a lot more risks. And so then I went to film school and basically learned how to make films. And then I started making films. I made my first feature, which was this Bad Dog and Superhero, and it is just crazy. I purposely made a movie that would never be distributed ever, ever, ever. I said, I'm going to blow it out, and I was a crazier young man. Now I've mellowed in my old age, so I just went all out. I did whatever I wanted to do. I made that film for about $4,000, I think. It took me about 2.5 years. So it was a long endeavor, maybe a little longer, and I actually just got distribution. So I'm now online. So far I'm on Google Play, which is really pretty amazing. For this film that I did a long time ago, and coincidentally, I ended up having a number of stars hidden in the movie that were not stars at the time, which is kind of crazy. My co-star in this film, his name's Christian Hoff. He went on to win a Tony Award. I have another guy who was an extra. He was just a local. We were shooting in a coffee shop. He's one of the coffee locals in Hollywood. He ended up to be the guy who plays Spock. I forget his name. That's right. He was extra, sitting at the bar. You know, told him to be quiet and look ahead, and you know, sit there for hours, and he did. There's a number of other people, and that's kind of the fun of all this stuff, is you never know who's going to end up doing what. So that was my first film, and then I was contacted by a guy, Einstein's God Model. This is a science fiction film, much more accessible, and that's going to be done in probably about 3 months. Lots of visual effects, and all of this stuff. The reason why these movies are even important, partially just I did them so you know I've done something, is that they're all done for very little money. And when I say very little money, I think this is, and I never tell how much I make films for, only in these classes. I always say, like this one, you know, this is a $100,000 film. This one, $2 million. This one, $2.2 million. But the reality is this costs about $4,000. This will, in the end, probably be about $25,000, maybe $30,000. And this one was probably about $20,000. These numbers are, anyone I ever talk to in Los Angeles, their eyes shoot blood if I say these numbers. That's not possible. But it is possible. This one, I think, because there's a big Comic-Con geek science fiction stuff, this one I think is going to do kind of interesting. This is Kevin Richardson, I don't know if you know him, from Backstreet Boys. Brian Gaskill is a daytime soap star. He asked to do the movie. So I did this, and people were like, fascinated. Wow, this guy can make movies. They're ridiculous, they're insane, but he can make a movie. And he does what he wants, clearly. So that was the beginning in Hollywood. This one, kind of the same thing, an original science fiction story that people were intrigued with the fact that I could have a voice. The artists become interested because I'm doing what they want to do. I'm doing something different. That's what happened with this. Kevin Richardson read the script and he went, oh my God, I want to do this script. This is an original script. This is amazing. And that's the same with Brian Gaskill. Diva Zappa, who's Frank Zappa's daughter, also asked to do it. These people asked to do it for no money because they were fascinated with the fact that they were original stories. Now my story is going to be a little unique and a little different because my whole desire was to make original stories. I'm just trying to show you, more importantly, anybody can do it. You don't have to make original stories. You know, every story is original. You can follow a commercial template. You can follow this, you know, breaking all the rules template. But people become interested once you do 1, 2, 3. My latest film, that's top secret. I'm actually contracted not to speak about it, but I'm going to. It is a film that I got a book given to me by Tony Duchesne, and his debut book. I got Eric Stoltz had approached me. I don't know if you know him. He was a famous actor, still pretty famous, and went on to film directing. And he does a lot of TV. And he approached me to do a film. He saw this one. He saw Bloody Indulgent. He said, "Oh my God, you're crazy." He directs Nashville. He directs Glee. He directs Boston Legal. He's an A-list TV director, and he wants to break out of that. He wants to do something different. He wants to do something crazy like this, and original. And he saw that, and he said, "I love what you're doing. I want to do what you're doing." And I said, "No, you don't. You won't get any coffee. You won't get any tea. You have to bring lunch for everyone. It's terrible. You don't want to do it." He said, "No, I really do. I love what you're doing. Original stories." And he basically kept pushing, and I showed him this book from Tony Duchesne. He grabbed on, and we finished shooting that. That's probably going to be done this year, and that's what can happen as a series of events. So again, just to encapsulate, what's possible if you do more than one is people start to sign on. People become interested in what you're doing, and that's kind of the thing of making a film with big money. All right, so we'll move on. This is me. Okay, you know this, so that's not interesting. Okay, so now we're at the point where I'm interested in kind of understanding what compelled you guys to come to this lecture, which is low-budget filmmaking. So I like to just kind of take a loose poll, because usually there's students, usually there's other filmmakers from the films. The filmmakers want to figure out if I know what I'm talking about. The students want to know how to make it. But how did you guys, can I just kind of get a random, what interests do you guys have in coming to the lecture? Please. Yeah.
I only have $34 grand and I want to make a film.
Cool. So you're just out here and you're interested in filmmaking?
Oh, I've been interested in filmmaking for a long time. Cool. And I've always wanted to make a film, and I wanted to know how to do it.
Great. Okay, good. Yeah.
I minored in film and radio, but how many years ago?
Doesn't even
30
matter.
years ago, maybe. And I just wanted to start writing.
Cool.
Writing.
Good.
I took a class out at the college, which I believe is still available at Victor Valley College last year. And I've made a couple silent movies, a 20-minute and a 40-minute.
For the class?
After the class.
Oh, cool.
One was before the class, one was after. But I learned a lot of things in the class.
Great.
And I met a good cameraman and editor, which unfortunately, and fortunate for him, he got accepted at the California College of the Arts in San Francisco.
Right.
So he's gone now. And I need a camera person.
Fresh meat. Good. Well, this is clearly a place where it might happen. Can I ask, let me just go in the back. Why are you guys, can I ask you right here?
Yes.
Why did you come?
Well, I'm interested in doing films. I have done it for, well, I mean, the interest has been a long time.
Yeah.
I'm currently, well, I did a little bit of filming, actually acting in the 90s.
Okay.
And I walked away. I was trying to film,
Sure.
got involved with some people in Los Angeles, but
Sure.
we never launched anything because it just
Yeah.
gets too expensive.
Yeah.
So I saw this and I decided to come and see.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to chime in? I don't want to grill you all, but I'm just so curious. Can I ask you?
Me?
Yeah.
Sure. I've just been goofing around with doing some silly things with my family, with some friends, and done a couple of music videos. And I thought, well, there's got to be a right way to do this, and I probably should start thinking about learning that. So I saw this thing and said, well, okay, I'll show up.
Cool. Really? God. Yeah. Can I ask you?
We're a mother-daughter team, and
Okay.
she was a theater major, and she takes voice acting classes down in Burbank and
So
such.
performance stuff? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But then I'm interested in writing, and the more we thought about it, the more we realized we'd rather go our own direction rather than try to break into the establishment.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
We're putting together a movie, we've got the script,
Wow.
and I have a good DP.
He points, he smiles.
Yeah, so we're looking at people that we can hire to help put
Great.
it together.
Wow, well, so clearly, from my take of this is there's a lot of motivated people, a lot of people that are pretty deeply interested. And I will tell you, my last experience 2 years ago, it's never of issue to me. I'm interested in anyone's interest, but there was a lot more casual. So I, I saw you were there, and I wondered why you're here, But there's this is a community of filmmakers. So this is how it happens. In my mind, this is what I do. Whether I'm in a big city or a small city, I grab each other's names, I find out, I see if I can help. Hey, what do you need? Hey, when you're shooting, I'll gaff for you. I'll run around, and then I'll use them as well. So this is where it begins, and that's what I strongly encourage. And I'm impressed. I have to say, it's really cool. Like you guys are. I mean, I can. You're making. You said you want to find out the right way. The right way is just make them. Really, just do it a bunch of times. That's all that, honestly. You go to film school and you learn certain things, but those things aren't necessarily always accurate for every job. And that's the first thing you learn. You come out of film school and you're like, oh, okay, that's how it's supposed to be done. Here's reality. And so I always say to people, you want to learn how to do it? Go make it. Go do it. Just keep doing it. Your third or fourth one, you'll have something. So here's my number 2, right? Figuring out what you think you need versus what you actually need. And I already kind of gave it away. The reality is I really, really am strongly emphatic about just do it. And what you do is incremental. So if you want to make a feature and you haven't done it, just crank out a 5-minute short. You will know a lot about where you're at and what's going on in that 5-minute short. And you want to test it further, submit it to a couple festivals. And you'll have the great experience of 40 festivals turning you down and one really small one, in northern Pogumski, wants to show it, and that's a great lesson. It's important. And then you might, if you did a really great job, and you can't count on it on the first one, but you get reality. Wow, my film kind of sucks. I thought it was good. But, so what? Second one, third one. You start getting 3 festivals are interested. You start kind of figuring out your voice, and that's what it's all about. And that's what I'm all about. So I can tell you all the things that film schools say, I can tell you all the things that studios say, and I can tell you that it's such a recipe for disaster. It's such a recipe for ending the possibilities. I love home cooking. You know what I mean? I love do it yourself, figure it out, use your phone. I always tell people, stop with getting the biggest red cameras. Don't do it. Use your phone. If you can't tell a story, we'll go into more of this later, but what you need versus what you think you need are 2 very different things. And usually I have my film students, as I said, and the film students go, Kenny, where do you get the money? Where do you get the stars? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter. Because if you have a great idea and a great story, it really doesn't matter. But you're not going to have a great idea or a great story until your 5th or 6th or 7th one. It's just how it is. It just takes time. You might be one of those crazy people that just does one film and it takes off. I'm not, and I don't think most people are. I think the best outcomes come from persistence. So there's that. And I say it's like the guide to take. I'm going to open my laptop because I feel like I'm missing some other fun things that you guys might like. Right, so I wanted to talk to you about the students because it's interesting. When the students come in, I'm always saying you don't need money. You don't need stars. And what you need is use whatever you have. Whatever's right in front of you, make the story. And I always say the iPhones, and I always give this story about, there's this kid who's awesome. And he was 14. And he would do these little things with his phone about his mom. His mom was always coming in and yelling at him, and he would record it, and he's just hilarious, and he would do these things clean up your room, it's a mess, and then he turns up, he's like, this is crazy, I don't want to clean up my room. And it was just hilarious, it was so ridiculous. And he did these 2-minute movies he cut together, and he just was a spirited, funny, great kid that decided to put these things on YouTube. Oh, well, after the 10th one, he started getting 500,000 hits, 1.5 million hits. This guy was getting known because of his really spirited, hilarious little films on his phone. He got a 3-picture deal at 17 years old. What? That's crazy. That's the reality that we live in now. The media is changing, and it's really exciting because that's what's possible. And of course, now everyone's running around trying to do that, and they can't do it as well, and it's always going to change. But that's what's possible. So I tell the students that. The professionals, and I tell you this because eventually you guys are going to become professionals if you keep doing it, and you start working. And you're going to think right now, that's the most amazing thing. That's what I really, really, really want. But here's what's the trapping of that. And usually, like I say, I have my students on one side and my pros on the other, and they're both grilling me on different ways. The pros, after they figure out I kind of know what I'm doing and I've done a few things, I'll sit and ask them, okay, but what story are you telling that you want to tell now? Because they're always working for someone. And that's what happens when you become professional. You work for someone and you tell their story, and a lot of times, after the third, fourth, fifth one, it's not that interesting. You do figure it out, you get your nice car, you get some kids, you get a house, and you got to keep doing it, and it turns into a job, and your passion and joy of it dies. So I always say, what's your story? What story would you tell right, and this is my big question, what's your story you would tell right now if you had total green light, anything goes, as big as you want? And you would think they'd go, I'd tell this story, you know, you'd think. That's not what happens. What happens is they get glassy-eyed, and then they get sad, because they can't answer the question. And that is what can happen. So how you protect that, and this is what I say to everyone. Right now I say to you, make three films a year, just because you're new to it, right? You want to go do something with it. That's what I say to you. That's possible. 3 shorts a year. In 3 years, you're going to be doing something. To the professionals, I say do three things for free a year. And only choose something that you can't not do. You have to do it. Because it's so compelling for whatever reason. Personal issue, somebody died of cancer, you want to do cancer, whatever it is. You love the story, whatever it is. And that keeps that voice, because the voice does die. That's my point, and that's why I like to share that. The voice does die if you don't keep coming to the place of what story do I want to tell. And then it's a job. And some people are happy with jobs. I'm not. It's really important to me to have that creative fire, you know, of telling a story. So that's what I shared with you. The guide to taking action is just that. You know, we talked about it loosely, which is take action, do 3 a year. Make yourself do 3 a year. That's all that film school really does. And I call it student-itis. Student-itis is, if I tell you, if I'm your professor and I say, okay, you got to do 3 a year, or I'm going to give you a F. They run out and they do 3 a year, right? And then they graduate and they don't do anything, ever. And it just dies. And I go, okay, well, I'm your professor. Let's pretend, because this works for you, I'm your professor and you better do 3 a year or I'm going to give you an F. I'll write you a letter and I'll say, you got an F, you have failed. But if you send me 3 a year, I might give you a C or a B or an A, depending on how they are. You know, and this is to get people motivated, because really, this is what it all boils down to, is we're fundamentally scared, lazy, you know, all these things. And if you can kick it up, if you can take action, you will see a change. And it will be 2 or 3 years, but you will be working or around people that are inspiring, that you're doing things, you will begin to finish things and figure things out. That's all really that I did, you know, to be making movies. So that's kind of taking action. Let's see what else I have on my... Right. What is the most important part? None of them. The most important part is take action, right? Getting money, craft service, the unions, what is it? These things come into play, but it's all just obstacles. Actually, who was I talking? Oh, okay. I was talking to Eric Stoltz last night. We had a meeting about the film that we're working on, and he's directing a new TV show. I forget the name. And he said, as we were talking and we were thinking about what we're going to do with the marketing on this other film, we're creating all these things that are going to make the media go crazy, and they're completely fraudulent. We're just making it up to make stories so that we attract attention, because we know that the media loves that stuff. We're awful, we're liars, and we love it. We have a lot of fun figuring out, like, ooh, let's pretend there's an X-rated scene in the movie that we had to cut out. And we start laughing, oh my God, they'll love it. Okay, and what he says is, in the course of this conversation, he goes, all we are is problem solvers. That's all we are. That's all we do. We solve problems, and there's lots of problems, and we solve more, and it's just like a puzzle. And I really thought, wow, that's really all we are. It's basically any parent, right? That's all we do as parents, is figure out what the problems to solve. So in that sense, that's what I came away with is, we're just problem solvers. All these things are problems, but it's no big deal, it's just doing it. Oops. Okay, the technology, now this is really interesting. If I'm going fast and there's any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask questions. I'm just trying to give you kind of my oversight, and then we can dig in a little bit deeper as we go. I always feel that one of the biggest traps is gear. You know, everyone wants a better camera, everyone wants a better lens, everyone wants better sound, and these are great things, but they're not really the biggest issue, and they're the things that can cause the most problems. So it is my theory, use 2-year-old technology, use what's already been tested and used and you can find everywhere for free, and don't be afraid to stay within that technology. And at the end, it's terrible. Once again, I'm going to tell you one of my big secrets. Everyone will say, what camera did you use? And I'll always say, well, the last 5 years has been the red camera, right? Everyone loves the red. And the reality is, it's fine, but it's not a big deal. If you use it poorly, it looks poor. Really poor, because it sees everything. If you use it well, it looks great. But you know what? If you use an iPhone well, it looks great. So I tell you, don't get sucked into gear. And everyone will say, I won't. They always do. Always somebody comes along and goes, there's a bigger camera, there's a better camera, there's a bit. It doesn't change anything, it makes your life more complicated. So keep it simple, keep it with what you understand, and trust your idea to be the thing. Don't change that. Somebody's going to come and say, I got the latest. Don't do it. I guarantee you, the minute you go down that road, you're going to find that there are 3 plugins to that software that you don't have, that haven't been invented yet. And you're really sad when you're 50 hours into editing and you don't have the right plugin to put the text that you want to put in. And that's experience. I've walked down that road. The craft is really interesting. I mean, obviously you can study and learn the craft. It is a craft. But, again, we grow up on media. We're around this stuff all the time. We have a basic understanding of it. The way that I hone my craft is I ask my friends to watch it and give me input. Then I edit a little more, I do a little more, then I ask another group of people, 5 people, do a little more. And what you find is this method will give you a good perspective outside of yourself. Because as you do it, you get sucked in. And you think you know what's going on. You show it to a person and they're like, what are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. And you got to kind of listen. My rule is if 3 people say the same thing, it's probably true, no matter what I think. So that's how I check myself. That's probably a good life lesson. 3 people tell us something, we probably need to listen to it. So the skills and the crafts you can learn, but don't get stuck on it. Just keep moving ahead. You learn it as you do it. It's the best way. And again, what is available, use it. That is, I'm not afraid. And I think the greatest artists, I'm sure if I went to Tarantino and I said, okay, you only get to use an iPhone and make a movie, he would look at me, give me a crazy stare, and love it, and run off, and we would all watch that movie because it would be great, because he's a crazy genius.
Can I have one question?
Yeah.
On gear.
Yeah, let's go back.
That's all right. I heard that the major studios rent almost everything.
I think right now there's a fair argument for renting gear because in basically buying new gear, the minute you buy it, you lose about a quarter to a third of the value. And they are being replaced in about 6 to 18 months.
With modern technology.
With the latest stuff.
Yeah.
So arguably, if you bought gear that's a year to 18 months old, you're going to get an amazing deal for probably about half the price. And, as long as it wasn't abused, it's going to run for another 2-3 years and work just fine. So a lot of people do rent. It's a great way to get out of it. I borrow. That's really a great way. I give another credit and I borrow the gear. Yeah?
I was just gonna say that, I don't know if I heard that if it's better to have a person that's really a good DP with an iPhone than someone who has a really expensive camera and doesn't know stuff.
That's a great point. I wouldn't necessarily bring that up because I just want people to make things and they'll figure it out. But it is true that if you find somebody with skills, great skills or a great eye. You can also find people that just shoot photography, and they don't even think about being DP, but they just have a beautiful eye. You can get them to shoot stuff, and they will be framing right. They will be lighting right. They'll be doing things that are compelling for the piece. So it's a great point. Great DPs. There's two parts of the movie, right? There's the DP who shoots the movie, and the director, of course, who's part of that. But the other thing is sound, and everyone doesn't know. But if you listen to a movie with bad sound, we automatically turn off. It looks like a bad movie to us. It's a strange thing. So I always say the other half of the movie is sound. And it's the other thing that's kind of a big deal that people overlook. And it's a tricky thing, sound, because to master sound it's a tricky thing. I don't like to get people bogged down on that, but it is something you do need to learn. It is something you do need to learn how to mic. You need to learn how to do it simply. There's a lot of great gear now, really cheap. So that makes it awesome. But and honestly, so directors and producers in general, you need to be able to put. I'm a DP that can put on the sound and handle the sound at the same time. I love it. It's amazing. But usually you need two people to do that, and it's a good idea. But it's great to have somebody who can handle sound and shoot at the same time. And there's compromises. It depends. A lot of my stuff is run and gun and really tricky to get. I'm stealing locations under the Hollywood sign, and I'm going to get kicked out literally kicked out by the park ranger in 20 minutes because I see him driving up the hill. I'm like, oh, we got to shoot this. I need that guy to just get some sound that's workable. And a lot of times it's my DP with the sound on and holding the recorder and shooting, and so it's exciting. But that can help. So it depends. You might have more time. You might have a great area where you're shooting where you have time. So then getting better sound is great. But sound and DP, well, oddly enough, you can have a great DP, and if you have bad sound, it's really weird. But the brain goes, oh, this is a bad movie. It brings down the value. It's really strange. So that's something you got to kind of learn and find your balances, because your threshold for picture might be, I want a really great picture, and sound I don't care so much about. But then when you go to the film festivals and you see people don't respond as much, you'll go, oh, I got to bring up my sound. And it's all, you got to learn by doing this stuff. So it's a great question and important, but you can only learn by doing it. And oh my God, my first movie, I'll tell you, like the sound was crazy, and I just spent a lot of time fixing the sound. But what I learned, sound's important. And basically, my feeling is, you pretty much got to get spanked once, and then you learn the lesson. And that's just how it is, I think. That's how I learned. Maybe you guys are better than me, but that's how I learned. So there's that. Any other questions while we're at this point? Yeah.
How about editing software? What do
This
you
is a
use?
great question, and this is editing software right now is in a great deal of controversy, right? We started with Avids, and that was these $500,000 systems that required hardware and software, and they were amazing. Then along came Final Cut Pro, and any Mac could run, and you could cut most any feature film. It was very hardy software, you could do a lot with it, and then they kind of dropped the ball a little bit. And so now there's a big debate, and I just go project to project and editor to editor. So there's also Adobe Premiere. There's a number of people that are using Premiere now to edit, and that was unheard of. And then there's the Final Cut 10, came out, and so should we use Final Cut, or should we, and a lot of people are using Final Cut 7 still, and not even going to 10. So they're using 3-year-old software, 4-year-old software, because they want to still use the functionality of that software. So the answer is there's no good answer. You got to see figure out who your editor is, figure out what they're great at using, and then sort of figure out, my features take, 6 to 24 months of editing. So I figure out, will this software be here for 24 months mostly? And that's how you do it. But if you were to learn it yourself, like if a student or someone were to ask me, hey, which software should I focus on now? I think you gotta kind of learn them all. I think right now it's a terrible time, because you used to only have to learn Final Cut. They had it for 6 years, 10 years almost. They did a great job. Now it's Premiere. If you want to be a professional editor, I don't know. I want to be careful about that, because honestly, if you learn one well, you can cut anything on it. So if you want to learn one and focus on one, maybe Premiere.
What are the costs on those? I mean, you know, we're like low-cost people, and I got a PC at home, and I want to buy I don't have a Mac, you know, so I don't.
Right. Yeah, that gets tricky, right? Final Cut is a Mac software. Premiere you can run, and you can get scaled down versions. I always say, you know, going into editing is a process of learning. You know, it's a software. You got to learn how to do it, and so that is a process. But it's one of the most important parts of filmmaking, right? Editing. Everything. Every media requires editing. So if you learn that, you have a job skill for the rest of your life. An important job skill. If you're good at it, you're going to make a lot of money, and you can work anywhere in the world, because that's the time we live in now. We don't need film. You know, we can send it by the internet. So, you know, I think take it seriously as what it is. You're not going to master it overnight. But if you want to scale down, I know a woman who cuts on her iFilm, just that standard software that comes on her Mac. That's a great way to begin the process. But you know, the reality is, sit down, treat it like a class, get a book, you know, do the tutorials, pick your software, because it doesn't truly matter. Final Cut or Premiere, well, you can't do, if you have a PC, then get Premiere, and do the tutorials, and learn how to do it. You're going to be cutting your film at that point. You know, there's like 20 basic moves, and you can pretty much cut a lot of films with those 20 basic moves. You know, crossfade, straight cut, short, long, you know, it's not too crazy. Put the sound in, move the sound around. So, but, you know, I don't want to oversimplify either. I mean, editing is a serious skill, and it, you know, it takes a long time to be amazing at it. So, you know, I don't want to reduce the importance of that. But diving in is great. And again, do something small. Do a music video where you don't even have to worry about sound. Cut a picture together. That's what I always tell people. First, just do a music video and you cut a picture. Then do a little short, 1-2 minutes long. You'll learn a lot. It'll be painful, but you'll learn a lot. All right, cool. Any other questions? Doubters, naysayers, supporters, nothing? All right. All right, so let's go on. So we did that pretty well. Now, this is the part that's kind of tricky, right? The idea and creativity. How do you learn how to have great ideas? I don't know. Right? It's subjective. How do you? But yet, a great idea is what makes everything. So this is something that I think everyone has to think about. And some people are great with ideas and not so great with execution. So sometimes it's who you collaborate with. And I think, you know, a great idea doesn't matter what you shoot it on. So this is a part that's really important that I don't even really know how to address, except to say, be aware of it. You know, look for the people that have great ideas, or if you're one of those people and you can't execute, try to merge with the people who can execute. And that's what the whole collaboration is about. Collaboration in general, you know, another incredible life lesson. If you can figure that part out, that's what makes you a producer. That's what I do really well. I know great creators, and I know great executors, and I know more or less how to keep them from killing each other. No sharp objects. But it's true. That's what happens. They go crazy. They hate each other. And that's basically producing. And everyone can do it. A question. A little man question. No, not a question. All right. So I like to think about that stuff. And again, this is, you know, idea versus execution. Who are the executors? Who are the idea people? And try to do both. Sometimes you get really good at things, and sometimes it takes a while. And the idea stuff, what's interesting is, I always say this thing about 3 films a year. Part of that is to discover your voice. You know what I mean? Discover what you're good at. You tell a story about, and you can figure it out in writing. You know, people will say, God, I love your grandmother characters. You write great grandmothers. And I'm like, yeah, I write, because my grandma was awesome. So I write, for some reason, really ballsy, cool grandmother characters. And certain other characters I'm not so strong at. And you kind of figure out what you do well, whether it's writing or, you know, editing or whatever. You go, oh, wow, I'm really good at quick cutting and little commercial type stuff. Great. You can make $1 billion doing that and fund all your other projects. You know what I mean? So discovering your voice and what you do well, long form, right? Features, whole different beast. Are you great at it? Or you're better at shorts. You might be better at shorts or music videos. So find your voice, find your stories. What are your stories? Some people, certain movies we know are just a certain style. Like, you pick any actor or any director. Tarantino. We know a Tarantino movie. You can not know his name on it, and you'll see it, and you'll go, that's very Tarantino-like. And it's the same thing with all the actors. So that is learning your voice, which is learning your creative possibilities. And that's part of this all. All right, so moving along. Finishing. All right, so there's this great old military quote. Currently comes out of like a 1902 standard grunt issue military book. And it is this, and I always remember this: any action, no matter how poorly conceived, if boldly executed, is better than no action at all. And I believe this to the nth degree. I bang this drum, I don't care what it is. Buying a used car, you can tell anything. I'm like, God, you must take action. So this is the one thing I can say, and I'll say it over and over and over again. The only reason why you're not doing what you want to do is because you're not taking action and you're not doing it. So take action, figure it out. You're not going to do it perfectly. That's the whole point. It's an imperfect process by its very nature. If it's chaotic, you're doing it right. That's how you know if you're doing it right. So, finish. Wait, let's go back. Finishing. Beep, beep, beep. Finishing. Oh my God, this thing. So I'll work on anyone's project for free. I'll do any number of things. But if they don't finish the project, and this is the first thing I say to them, if you don't finish this project, I'm going to hunt you down and I'm going to kill you. That, you have wasted my time, and it's not okay. So one thing I say. So I say it to you, finish. Whatever it is, finish it. If you don't finish it, they pile up like evil little monsters, and they tell you how much you can't finish anything. And they really do. And it doesn't matter if it's finished imperfect. Then move on to the next one. It's really important, finishing. So, okay. This, we already basically, did I go backwards? Okay, so this is the basic thing. This room is an impressive room. Me, if I was making a movie out here or anything, if I had a project, I would, and I'm serious, I'd pass the paper around and say, anyone who's serious about making things, I want to know what you're doing, put it on this paper. I'm going to start a little Google group. We're going to be the Spiria filmmakers, whatever. Get it done, and I would start that group, and that group would grow. And that group would end up getting things done. And if you met monthly, that group will do things. And here it is.